name is Danielle. This video is coming to you from North Bay, Ontario. It is Monday, November 30th, 2020. My site-based action research project topic is music at transition time in kindergarten. The purpose of my project is to incorporate musical transitions using songs with gestures. The question being analyzed is the use of music during a time of transition going to affect what will happen to the student's ability to focus following the transition? So the examples of the transition would be beginning of the day in the morning meeting, switching to lessons, or it would be transitioning from one lesson to another lesson. So the context. The school where the research was conducted is called Phoebe Gilman Public School in East Gwillimbury, Ontario, which is near Newmarket. Phoebe Gilman is the name of a Canadian author. The board is York Region District School Board. The teacher I was working with is Mrs. Jennifer Martins, who I'll refer to as Mrs. Martins, and she had 26 online learners in her class. So Mrs. Martins and I were in an empty class at Phoebe Gilman Public School, and the learners were at home with their parents or guardians online. And this is just a brief overview of what our week would look like. So we would have a Math Monday for small group lessons, Tech Tuesday, which is STEAM, so science, technology, engineering, arts, and mathematics, Wellness Wednesday, which would be healthy eating, physical exercise, emotional well-being, Thinking Thursday, which was a focus on literacy, and Fun Friday, which would often be a time to find more space for curricular things we could not incorporate in the week. The question for the context setting is, will the benefits of music at transition time still apply to the online learners in this full-day kindergarten environment? So for the literature review, I chose to focus on two topics I found relevant in my action research project. So the first one is participation or student engagement. So this graphic down here depicts many students enthusiastically raising their hands to participate. So in the case of music, we would want to see many of our students singing along with us, or perhaps engaging in other ways, not just singing. So by clapping or using gestures or counting on their fingers, just doing what they can to show that they are still emotionally and cognitively engaged, even when they're not voicing answers. So participation in music class is fundamentally for every child in a full-day kindergarten program. So it has been shown that music can help to develop the whole brain at this stage of learning. So on this next slide, I just have a list of the parts of the brain and what parts of the brain can benefit from music. So whether it be the motor cortex, the students are tapping their feet and nodding their head, so that is controlling the muscles that create body movements, and then that is working with the language parts of the brain and the auditory cortex where they process sound. So all the parts of our brain are just lit up during music. So the second, moving on to the second topic discussed in the literature review, currently in our EDC 4757 course, Music for Primary Junior Students with Professor Adam Adler, he has been discussing rote learning and teaching with us. So beyond simply singing to children, this engages them in learning more than one verse or just the chorus of a song. So pre-literate learners may not be ready to read song lyrics off the screen because we're just teaching them how to learn and how to recognize letters. However, if we can get them to actively listen to a song and we can break it down piece by piece for them, then they can learn it by ear. So the connection to the project is this instruction style inspired me to try it with a small group over the course of 3 days. So we will get into that a little bit more later when we look at the data collection. So for the methods of data collection, A close-up picture of the charts created to collect daily participation can be seen on the screen. So here I have the date and time. Here I have the student name. Here's the rating scale for participation, so 1, 2, 3, or 4, and comments. So the rating scale is based on 4 numbers. So 1 would be no participation. The student does not appear on screen even though their camera is on, or they're not looking at the teacher who's leading the song. A 2 on the rating scale would be that the student shows interest, but they're not showing very much participation in the song. And this is keeping in mind for daily participation that their microphones are off, so we're not able to hear them unless they are putting their hand up to give an answer. So a 3 on the rating scale would be we can see the student is engaged, singing or using hand gestures. And then 4, obviously the student is very engaged, they're singing and they're gesturing to most, if not all, the song and smiling. So that was the way that I collected the daily participation data. So moving on to data collection 2 for the small group learning. So this is where I was able to work with students in a smaller group environment, which was wonderful because I could see if following the music instruction, the student was more focused, more distracted, or if they were unaffected, if they were neither more focused or distracted. So in this close-up view of the chart, you can see the student name. This column was for day 1, so on day 1 I taught them the first verse and took note of focus, neither or distracted, and then day 2 I taught them the second verse, and day 3 we tied it all together. So at the end of the lesson I would make some comments as well. This slide depicts a timeline of the time period that I was at placement. So October 12th was Thanksgiving, so the first day of placement was actually October 13th. But due to technological problems, I was not able to start seeing the students until the Friday of that week. So the first week I couldn't really get a lot of data. So on the second week is really when I started observing the teacher teaching with the students and I could see the students. So the white line depicts the time that I was taking the daily participation log. And then the red line down here depicts the time that I was doing the small group lesson. So that was just 3 days that small group took place. So getting into the modifications, there were several modifications that needed to be put in place immediately because of the situation with the microphones needing to be turned on before being able to hear the students online. I was not able to implement the clapping call and response music that I had planned. So basically I had to modify by just doing songs and hand gestures instead. And then the daily participation log became the best way to obtain the data. So originally I wanted to take a daily focus, distracted, or neither scale of all of the learners in order to obtain as much data as possible, but that was not possible due to the microphones being off. Okay, so discussion of findings. Over the next few slides, specific findings will be displayed, but these are just some overall findings. So as I had hoped I would witness with this group, there was improvement in student participation as the songs became more familiar, so that was really wonderful to see. When I started placement, it was the 4th week of online school, so the students were familiar with many of Mrs. Martin's songs. When I arrived, I made sure to teach them new songs with gestures for data collection for this project. More student participation with a teacher-led song than a video. So over time I noticed that the students were more interested in teacher-led singing other than the videos, other than the special occasions such as Halloween. Interpretation. So co-creating song ideas with students led to success. So for example, we would sing Down by the Bay and the students would add the last sentence to that song, and they really enjoyed those types of situations where they could lend their creativity to the song. So furthering interpretation, I noticed that my associate teacher, Jen Martins, and the students were very interested in the music that I was bringing into the class. So that was something I had worried I would just be so enthusiastic about and no one would get it, but everyone was on board. So that was wonderful to see. So moving on to the results of the project. Table 1 here displays the participation data over 12 days. So even though I was observing for 4 weeks, there were really only 12 days of data that were able to be displayed. As you can see in the chart, the blue depicts a rating scale of 1 out of 4. So when I first arrived and I was observing, there were many 1s, but over time the 1s went down, and over time the 4s seemed to increase, which was wonderful to see. So overall, students showed improved participation in the morning music song led by the teacher, so either Mrs. Martins or myself. So in our second page here of results, this is for the rote learning chart. So we can see the students' names are here, and then I've wrote a F for focused, N for neither, or D for distracted. And we can see overall on day 3 across all 4 groups, there were more students who seemed to be more focused after our music lesson before their next learning activity than students were distracted or neither. So that was very positive to see that music was having a good influence on them. And this is another survey that I took at the end of my placement. So I simply asked the students to give me a thumbs up for yes, a thumbs down for no, and there's always a pass option if they don't want to give yes or no, where they can do the sideways thumb. So I asked them, do you enjoy singing with your teachers? And I got many yeses, a couple no's, and a pass. And do you like learning new songs? So again, many yeses, a couple no's, and a couple passes there. So that was just an ending survey on my very last day to just kind of see how the music had gone over in the class with the students. Implications. So there were a couple limitations in this study. The online learning aspect, of course, was a limitation because even though I knew it was going to be online learning, when I arrived, there were still things that held me up and held me back, so that was a big implication. I put curriculum here because there's not a whole lot of area on the full day kindergarten curriculum that has room for music. There's a little bit there, so teachers are having to plug in their music into other areas of the day, for example, like Fun Friday, where there's more room for other things that aren't always in the curriculum. And then time constraint was just, it would have been nice to do more small group lesson theories. I did get a chance to do that 3-day rote teaching lesson, but more would have been nice. So that was a limitation that I experienced. Next steps. So I would say if teachers would like to continue to see success at transition time with their kindergarten students, they should continue implementing music in the morning meeting. So having maybe one song you sing every day, but then switching up the song for other days, or like switching in a new song from time to time. Give the students opportunities to choose the songs that they want to sing, so not just finishing up the Down by the Bay song, but suggesting songs that they would like to sing, and make a small group lesson more focused and more important in the curriculum. So I was just talking about that previously. And then in conclusion, music is a wonderful tool for many people, young and old, students, teachers, everyone. As teachers, it's our job to help foster an early appreciation of music in our PJ students, because it can help at times like transition, and because it can help develop the brain, so all of those wonderful things. So thank you so much for listening to my presentation. I've got my references there, and have a great week 8.